this off and let's get into it.
8 cheat codes will help make sure that you're not writing stories that readers end up hating. Hey, I'm John Matthew Fox, and I help authors write better stories through editing and through courses. So let's get right into it by starting with number 1, the crucible technique.
Ooh, the crucible technique.
Crucible technique says that characters reveal their true nature when they're put under an enormous amount of pressure. And as you might have guessed, this comes from Arthur Miller's The Crucible, which is about the Salem witch trials because, you know, when you're accused of a witch, your true colors start showing. Now, most of you are like, oh, I already put my character underneath a lot of pressure, so I'm not sure this applies to me. Okay, take a look at these 2 advanced ways that you can use it. First, what most authors don't think about is when your character isn't underneath that extreme pressure, that means they're fronting in some way. They are showing a fake self. So it's your job to show your character's false self, their projected self, their illusion that they have about themselves. The second thing you want to do with this is make sure you tighten the crucible even more. There are always ways to ratchet up even further to make it even more painful for your character. And if we look at the crucible, for an example, let's look at John Proctor, who is forced to sign a false confession. That's bad enough, right? But how can we increase the pressure on him? Well, what Arthur Miller does is he says, oh, this confession is going to be posted on the church door where it's going to be used against everyone else. And then that makes it way worse. And if you like the tips that I mentioned in this video, make sure to check out my course, Writing Techniques, where I cover stuff like character doubling and micro-conflict and delayed decoding. That course is 27 videos, or you can get more than 250 videos by subscribing to my Bookfox Academy. Link is down below, and you should click on it. Now, I absolutely love this next writing technique. It is number 2, lamp shading. Now, what do you do as a writer when you discover that you've written implausible or ridiculous things? I think your first impulse is probably to be like, yeah, let's just delete that. Okay, not a terrible option, but let me present you with a second option, which is lamp shading. Lamp shading is calling attention to an implausible element before the audience can object to it. And it's called this because it diffuses the audience's skepticism the same way a lampshade diffuses light. Let's look at 3 different ways that you can pull this off. One is if you have an improbable storyline. In Avengers: The Age of Ultron, there is a moment where Hawkeye says to Scarlet Witch,
"The city's flying. We're fighting an army of robots. And I have a bow and arrow. None of this makes sense."
So the writer knows that the viewer might be like, this seems ridiculous. So they head off that skepticism by just having the character call attention to the ridiculousness of it. The second way that you can make this work is if you are writing a coincidental storyline. Yes, coincidences are almost always bad, and it feels like cheating to the reader a lot of times. In Gabriel Garcia Marquez's novella, Chronicle of a Death Foretold, we see him trying to squeeze out of coincidences in the writing by calling attention to them. A judge investigating the murder says, "I never thought it legitimate that life should make use of so many coincidences forbidden in literature." Sort of a wink-wink meta moment at the reader. And the third way that you can use this lamp shading technique is through cliched storylines. In My So-Called Life, Graham Chase reveals to his brother that he's been flirting with another woman and that she wants to take him to a hotel room to start an adulterous affair. And the brother says, "That's such a cliche." And Graham responds, "Well, cliches happen." That is the writer drawing attention to herself right there. She knows that it sounds like a cliche, but she knows, oh, if I call it out, the reader's gonna roll their eyes less. And you should comment below with your favorite lamp shading in a book or a movie, or if you have examples from any of the other points that I'm making in this video. I always think the more examples, the better. This next point is an absolutely brilliant one. It is number 3, the objective correlative. That sounds like word salad. I know, you're like, I'm not sure this is the right writing video for me. But hang on there, let me explain. The objective correlative is T.S. Eliot's term for describing how you use an object and a chain of events to evoke emotion in the reader. So let's look at an object inside of a chain of events, specifically the Heart of the Sea diamond in the movie Titanic. No, seriously, I do have a spoiler alert because we're talking about the end of the movie here, where Rose, who is an old woman now, goes and throws the Heart of the Sea diamond into the ocean. Now, why does a moment like that make us less emotional? Well, it's because all of the emotion has been shoved into this object, which is representative of their relationship. It is a symbol of their connection and love. She wore it while she was posing for Jack. It's also a kind of tribute for Jack, the way that sailors will like throw wreaths on the ocean to symbolize their fallen comrades. The writer took the emotion of lost love and embodied it in this physical object. That is an objective correlative, and you should absolutely use one in your book.
Let's look at an object inside of, and my mind filled in the rest. Oh.
Now this next one is really fun.
So the way I'd say I'd do this is like the Winry Ed thing from Fullmetal Alchemist. The way that Hildebrandt treats Husai's armor once she becomes his main crafter. And it's like clearly you can tell she has some sort of connection to the armor itself, right? Like she's putting her whole spirit into it, right?
Technique, and it's
and maybe we can do that as like high quality gear. Like the more invested you are in the product, the better the product can be. So you want crafters that are truly invested in the materials and objects that they're making.
More broadly applicable than you would initially think. So hang on once you hear it. It is number 4, the Worf effect. The Worf effect says to have a new opponent defeat your strongest warrior in order to escalate the stakes and make it feel more dangerous in your story. And as you might have guessed, this technique comes from Star Trek, where new aliens would throw around Worf, the Klingon, because he was the strongest warrior, and everyone would be like, oh, whoa, this alien race is strong. Oh, now we're really in trouble. Well, we can see this in all sorts of different storylines. For example, look at Robin Hood, where every single time Robin Hood and Little John meet someone in a forest, that new stranger will defeat one of them, and then Robin Hood's like, oh yeah, you should totally join our gang. Or look at the first scene in Avengers Infinity War, where we realize this new villain, Thanos, is seriously powerful.
He takes out the Hulk.
He easily defeats the Hulk. And the same thing happens in Arthurian legend, where every single time a new knight is introduced, they prove their worth by beating a whole lineup of established knights. So Gawain does this a lot, as well as Percival. Now some of you are like, John, I'm not writing an action story. I don't see how this point is relevant to me. Oh, it's relevant. It's definitely relevant. Let me give you some examples. Say you're just writing a normal humdrum realistic story. You can do this technique verbally. For instance, you have a new character come in and just verbally demolish someone who's sort of witty of tongue in the character cast already. Suddenly, this newcomer stock is elevated. We realize, oh, whoa, who is this new person? And the same thing can happen in the romance genre. Say a new girl walks in and all the guys' eyes move from the established female character to this new girl, and we realize, oh, there's gonna be some romantic tension. Basically, this is the principle of when you introduce a new character, have a bit of one-upsmanship because it establishes them as a serious contender against your established characters. This next tip, I haven't seen.
We kind of do that a lot because I'm thinking about it like, I want to have like, because you know there's like the idea of the top 10% of each race and like a high race. So there's like the Beastmen and then the top literally 10 people of their species are usually referred to as high of that species. Like a high Sahagin, because they're so far outside the normal range of intelligence for the species. That's what, and that's kind of like how this whole like riot with the Beastmen at the beginning, because they're like, the idea is that one of the council members is a High Lamia pretending to be an avian, because they both have like the snake tail feature. So it's just an easy way to hide in plain sight as an adventurer who never takes their armor off. And then it's like out of nowhere, you know, you kind of have the civilians pressing back, being like, what the hell's going on, trying to make a riot. Made a good image so far. Nice, Muffin. I'm excited to see it when you're done.
I picked it up just by doing a lot of reading, and I just see it again and again. It is number 5, high stakes to low...
High stakes to low stakes dialogue.
Low stakes dialogue. Say you have a character who is revealing their diabolical plan to end the world. And then they grab a muffin and offer it and be like, muffin? This is a great technique to trivialize the conversation, to show that like the end of the world means nothing to them. They're going to pair a conversation like that right next to something that is very meaningless and low-key. Now this can just
they
be
referenced
a
you,
moment of humor,
Muffin. Holy
which is
shit,
something
that's
that Austin
crazy.
Powers does really well. Or it can be very serious. And I'd also like to point out that you can do the opposite. You can go from very low stakes up to high stakes. If you look at the movie Inglourious Basterds by Tarantino, we see that a Nazi official is coming to question a poor farmer. And a lot of the text of the actual conversation is very low stakes. Stuff like, can I have a glass of milk? And can I ask you some questions? He says, before I go, can I have another glass of your delicious milk? And stuff like, may I smoke my pipe? All of these are very innocuous lines of questioning. But then, all of a sudden, it escalates up to, you're sheltering enemies of the state. Are you not? And it's such a heavy shift in the conversation, this radical departure from low-level stakes to like, oh, the stakes are super high. He knows. He knows about the people hiding under the floor.
Cutest things in nature are often the most deadly. True, Sean.
To know it is number 6, the
Gilligan cut. Yeah, Muffin's insane, man. He's so epic.
Now, this comes from Gilligan's Island, which I don't know how many of you are old enough to remember watching that. Maybe I'm just dating myself here. And it just comes from when a character says, I'll never do X, and then right in the very next scene, they're doing X. The great thing about this technique is it gives you a great stopping point for a scene, and then a good laugh when the reader begins the next scene. Look at The Martian by Andy Weir, who does this really well. At the end of one journal entry, he says, things are finally going my way. In fact, they're going great. I have a chance to live after all. Look at that, 3 exclamation points in a row. And then there's a break, and then in the next log entry, he says, I am screwed, and I'm gonna die. Or look at a book like Catch-22 by...
Look at any 5-year-old girl and see just how quick she can totally accidentally unalive her father with a totally innocent comment. Cats, they're so cute, but he was choking me last night. I see.
Joseph Heller, one of the funniest books I've ever read. There's a section where the narrator is asserting just how amazing this guy Appleby is and how absolutely everyone likes him. And then there's a paragraph break, and the next session, Yossarian says, I hate that son of a gun. That's the PG version. Or in Finding Nemo, the fish are interrogating a crab, and the crab says, I'll never tell you. And then in the next scene, the crab is lifted above the water, and these seagulls look over like, oh, my neck snapped.
Well, stop snoring, slave, like, okay, says the cat to Muffin.
So just add the Gilligan's cut to your repertoire of good ways to end your chapters or scenes or start your chapters or scenes. This next point is kind of an allusion to Edgar Allan Poe. It is number 7, the telltale object. This is an everyday item that seems to appear semi-frequently inside your story, and it causes readers to start to have this feeling of dread whenever it shows up. And for an example of this, look at the way that oranges are used in the movie The Godfather, where they frequently appear right before a moment of extreme danger or character death. Don Vito buys oranges from a street vendor just before he gets shot. Oranges are on the table when the 5 families have that meeting where they're discussing the drug trade. Vito Corleone plays with his grandson around orange trees.
I put a pillow on me to stop him from scratching me, and he went for my neck
instead. And then he soon dies afterwards. And a billboard for Florida oranges is visible right before Sonny is ambushed and killed at the toll booth. Now, the reason why this telltale object is so good is it not only contrasts visually, you know, most of the movie is very dark and oranges are very bright, but it also contrasts symbolically. Death is the opposite of bright, happy, uplifting citrus. So your mission is to find a way to incorporate a minor, seemingly innocuous object into your storyline and have it accrue meaning over time. And the very last writing technique that we are looking at is the Trojan horse.
Trojan horse. Character. Would this be the Viceroy?
Character. This is a character who is either betraying your protagonist or just pretending to be someone they are not. For an example of betrayal, look at Cypher in the original Matrix. He appears to be just another crew member working alongside Neo, but then he sells everybody out because he has been promised a comfortable life inside the Matrix. But a different version of a Trojan horse character would just be someone who is under a disguise. For instance, think of Peter Pettigrew, who in Harry Potter disguises himself as the rat Scabbers. He is in that disguise for 3 books long before it is finally revealed about his true identity. But if you do use a Trojan horse character, you really have to be—
My wife got me craving tonight. No clue why, but I've been craving a Wendy's Baconator for ages, and she brought me a triple patty Baconator today. Damn, Sean! Marry her again! You should marry her again. Holy shit.
Be careful that their motivation is clear, because a lot of writers mess up on this. The reason that Cypher portrayed all of his team was that he longed for the comfortability of an easy life, and that gave him motivation for collaborating with the agents. Okay, look in the description for links to Bookfox Academy, which you definitely should subscribe to. And also, don't forget I have options to help you with publicity and with copy editing as well.
Hell yeah. Alright, well that one went like by super fast, because I didn't really have anything to say about it. I don't know whether that's good or bad. Not quite sure.